Hey guys, I know a lot of you guys are getting slightly irritated with this bootleg Bobby Deol coming in front of camera and presenting the content. I assure you, I'm just mixing it up. Sometimes it's going to be on camera, sometimes it's going to be just video essays with visuals. So just bear with me during this experimentation. Today's video is quite the interesting one regarding controversies I think a lot of people don't speak about. So let's get to it. Seeing the trailer of Stree 2, I was left with mixed feelings, and this is something that has stayed consistent with me regarding the horror universe that is extremely successful and is only expanding since 2018. I take that back actually. Because if you strictly see it from a financial standpoint, the films that have been additions to the supernatural Maddock universe since 3, which include Ruhi, Bhedia and Munjia, the dark horse among the three that released this year is the only financial hit. So what has been missing since this journey started? And I think it's important to discuss this situation that many creative minds undergo while working in the Hindi film industry, especially when they are not equipped with a legal team that covers all tracks and projects regarding their intellectual property or whatever they creatively think about. Raj and DK were responsible for the screenplay and overarching story of the first three. This movie, produced by Maddock Films, in my opinion, was the perfect balance between the eerie folklore and slapstick comedy. As the installments have increased, the folklore has almost become the fluff of these movies, being the trigger that motivates audiences to storm into theaters, and the screenplay is mostly inundated with comedic gags that are mostly, well, inconsistent. I attribute a lot of the freshness and brilliance of the original Stree to the inventive writing of this duo. With the success of the film in 2018, there was a creative and, more importantly, financial fallout that took place between Raj and DK and Dinesh Vijan, the founder of Maddock Films. While a source close to Raj and DK claimed that from casting and shooting to editing, mixing and music, Raj and DK were involved in the making of Stree at its every step. The conclusion, however, of this dispute was that they had amicably resolved the dispute, and the most important point, all copyright and intellectual property rights in and to the film Stree, including the derivative rights thereof, are henceforth owned solely by Maddock Films Private Limited.
It's not just enough to be a filmmaker. You have to be prudent in all aspects.
I assume, and this is all speculation, Maddock may have just done a payout and resolved this issue. This in turn distanced Raj and DK from a property they created, mind you, envisioned to be a 3-part series also. It's tough to let go of your baby, right? But this is the ruthless nature of the industry, where if you are not protected on all accounts while signing projects with film producers, writers often give away all the rights to a person funding the project. This in turn will make you stand on faulty ground, especially if there is bound to be professional rifts and differences. You wonder why a movie like Go Goa Gone has not got its sequel, right? Well, another creation by Raj and DK had several producers, including Saif Ali Khan, Dinesh Vijan and Eros, which in turn make the director duo dependent only on those who have the rights to the film to make a call if they are willing to make the sequel, mind you, with them. The ball again is not in the duo's court. So while I did enjoy the Stree 2 trailer, I love to see the gang back together. Some of the gags really made me chuckle. I am ecstatic to see how Sarkata and Stree battle it out with one another. I'm also intrigued about Pankaj Tripathi hinting in an interview with Lallan Top that there may be a Crazy Star cameo, but the whole scenario and what transpired post 3 does leave me with mixed feelings. And this is why I wanted to speak to you about an issue that many creative people go through and something I believe is not discussed enough in the mainstream. Holding on to the IP of something you create is essential for you in a court of law. This is something that has become far more stringent today than it was a few decades ago. In layman's terms, think of a WWE character like Edge. Yes guys, he is a character. Edge is not a real person. I'm sorry to burst your bubble. This name and identity is essentially owned by WWE. So if there is a situation where he does go to another wrestling company, he cannot use the same character name. So when Edge does debut in AEW, a rival wrestling brand, he is introduced as Adam Copeland. This same phenomena is especially true for the music industry, where artists often give the rights to their masters, if they've signed a film, to the music label associated with the movie. So in many cases, something that you created, irrespective of the heart, soul and emotion behind it, now it's just a part of a corporate entity. So A.R. Rahman feeling bad about his song Ishwar Allah, a gem written by Javed Akhtar for the film Earth, actually in our corporatized world means nothing, because the owners of the masters can reproduce it, remix it however they like. And sadly, if you hear the remix version which they placed in a movie like PM Narendra Modi, they really bastardized the essence of that song.
Credits have to be given and permission has to be taken. Like for instance, one of my songs, Ishwar Allah, is one of my favorite songs, and Javed Akhtar Sahab wrote. They took that song and they really killed it.
So it's not as if Raj and DK can just prance around and make a Stree 2 or a Go Goa Gone 2 with other producers, because the IP is owned by Maddox Films. I mean, just look at the industrial complex of remakes that has only become streamlined in the last 10 or 15 years or so. We not long ago had Hindi cinema just copying Korean and Hollywood films without really bagging the official rights of the original film, and they would get away with it. This is of course not always the case. You remember Pooh's introduction in K3G as its Raining Men played in the background? Karan Johar had actually used the music without purchasing the rights for the film. This in turn led him to being sued in a UK court and was sentenced to pay compensation for the same. You have many other instances where creators have either reached muddy ground or have landed in trouble with the law. Let's talk about some of these instances. You remember a film called Knockout that released in 2010? A film that was a scene-to-scene copy of the Hollywood film Phone Booth, but had actually not bagged the official rights of remaking the film. 20th Century Studios filed a complaint against the makers of Knockout before the film's release. The Bombay High Court had initially passed an injunction against the film's release after watching both the films. However, the producers were allowed to release the film on appeal and deposited 1.5 crores to the court. I still understand about adaptations or inspiration, but how the creators thought they could get away with it is baffling. There is a similar case which is quite hilarious, by the way, regarding a film called Harry Puttar that released in 2008. A film clearly inspired by Home Alone, but who thought they could get away with that title, not ringing a bell for them on its eerie similarity to a popular franchise title. Warner Brothers filed a lawsuit against the production company Mirchi Movies to stop the release of the film due to the similarity of its title to that of the Harry Potter series. Delhi High Court threw out the case actually on the basis that the public would be able to differentiate between the two titles. This makes me hilariously think about the recent fiasco that happened with Kalki, having opened their bookings prior to the release, and many had bought Kalki tickets for Rajashekhar's 2019 movie, a glitch which was a meme for the ages. Speaking of titles, another issue that many creatives have to deal with if they are ever in the industry of creating films is sentiments getting hurt. If you are making a film, be ready for the onslaught of rage, because this is what you have signed up for. It can be as small as the case of Billu, which was originally titled Billu Barber. You know why it was changed? Because salon and beauty parlor associations of Bandra raised objections by finding the word barber derogatory. And it can be as dicey as Goliyon Ki Ras Leela Ram Leela, which was originally titled Ram Leela. The name change is a result of an order passed by the Delhi High Court in 2013 staying the release of the film. A petition filed against the film accused it of hurting religious sentiments and also said that since the term Ram Leela is associated with Lord Ram, moviegoers would expect to be watching a religious film. So in one case, the audience is smart enough, and in another case they aren't. In other cases, if you're going to be making a film about a revered historical figure where their identity is sacred to them, expect there to be preemptive backlash. Backlash not on the basis of the content of the film, but what you may allude to purely on presumption, something movies like Padmavat and Udta Punjab were marred by. Thankfully, in the case of Udta Punjab, it was one of the few times the industry stood together as one.
हम लोग ऐसे ही नहीं उठ के खामखा कोई फिल्म बना दे रहे हैं, और मैं तो बल्कि ये भी कहूंगा, मैं तो सेंसरशिप के इतना खिलाफ हूं कि अगर कोई उठ के खामखा भी फिल्म बनाए तो उसको भी अलाउड होना चाहिए, बिल्कुल अलाउड होना चाहिए, क्योंकि वो उस फिल्म को रिजेक्ट करने का हक जो है ऑडियंस को ही होना चाहिए.
So one has to realize that the challenges of filmmaking just go beyond telling a story. Another issue that comes with this department is the case of who came first, the chicken or the egg. See the recent controversy regarding Lapata Ladies, a movie hugely celebrated in the digital space and that did respectable numbers at the box office, but was called out by Anant Mahadevan on grounds of plagiarism, saying it clearly was a retelling or at least inspired by his 1999 telefilm Ghungat Ke Patkhol. While the narrative diverged in different directions, eventually he found the basic premise to be clearly inspired from his film.
Brides getting mixed up on a railway station because
Such
of
a
home
coincidence.
it cannot be a coincidence.
You look at the case of Manikarnika and the uproar that Ketan Mehta caused near its release. A director who had actually announced a Rani Lakshmibai movie with Kangana in 2016, but somehow it did not materialize. Only for the director to see in 2019 that Kangana is making a film on the same figure with Krish. Ketan Mehta had told Bollywood Hungama, "My project was an international co-production. It was about British generals' obsession with capturing Rani of Jhansi. It was way more balanced. Manikarnika, the Queen of Jhansi, became jingoistic and nationalistic. He called the situation unfortunate and heartbreaking. But as I said, in this corporatized world, feelings are really immaterial. If 3 Bhagat Singhs can release on the same day, then there can be several iterations of Rani Lakshmibai, no matter how much you think your version is the best." I think the last form of conflict that I would want to talk about that does arise while dealing with creative ideas and production companies is when a director is making someone else's material or vision a reality. Think of a film like Kal Ho Na Ho, a movie where the screenplay and story is written by Karan Johar, but interestingly the film is directed by Nikhil Advani. Karan, in his memoir An Unsuitable Boy, had mentioned that he regretted not directing Kal Ho Na Ho. Nikhil agreed with Karan's thought and told Hindustan Times in 2017 that "I don't blame him for regretting it. He wrote it from his heart. But I think he underestimated himself and he thought that he won't be able to do justice to it. Now when he says that, I feel his pain." Kal Ho Na Ho went on to become the biggest hit of 2003. So Karan Johar was definitely regretting not directing it. Examples like Wazir, where Bijoy Nambiar took on the responsibility of making Vidhu Vinod Chopra's story a reality, was met with several creative conflicts between the artists.
If you ask me whether I'm fully satisfied with it as compared to Shaitan and David and Solano, I'm not, because I did see the film a certain way. I think about 80% is what I really wanted, but that 20% is not something that I do regret, but at the same time that regret comes with a lot of love for the fact that it was someone's vision, so I had to justify that vision. I had to do the best I could do, and I did.
Kalank, a movie that Yash Johar had originally envisioned for the 90s, was finally becoming a reality in 2019. And in the pursuit of making his father's dream a reality, I think Karan Johar went too big and too lavish for his own good, not realizing that the tonality of the film just seemed dated in its pitch, something that director Abhishek Varman just could not transform into the sensibilities of today.
That I think I lost complete objectivity, and I think I gave everybody unnecessary wings to fly. I completely believe it's my failure and no one else's.
You look at a movie like Tare Zameen Par, a movie for which so much credit is given to Amir Khan, the director and star of the film, but it was written by Amol Gupte. It is said that Amol was the original director of the film, but Amir took over from him midway due to creative differences. Amir was credited as the director, while Amol had to settle for writer and creative director. On being asked if there were people in Bollywood who tried to discourage him from taking on Amir, Amol said that it was only natural. Who would not want to stand with Goliath? Who would stand with David? But it's okay. You find your guerrilla ways of doing your warfare and see that you bring out your next baby and your next and your next. That is what I owe to cinema and not to anybody else. Speaking of which, I just want to end with this anecdote that a friend of mine had, who is a writer by the way, and what she went through. I can't tell you what a feeling of euphoria it is when your script gets picked by a big production company. You're an outsider with these big dreams, and when you finally get some acknowledgement, it's really like a feeling indescribable. When you finally get the news that your film is falling in the right hands, the people who can give it like that necessary push, allowing for a larger audience to be aware of it, you want to pinch yourself. Is this really happening? And slowly and steadily, the ideas you had of the actors who will be involved in the project, the tonality of the film, where it should be set, it keeps on getting compromised. You hope for at least the core of the film to stay, and you are told to know your place. A film that was supposed to be a small, heartfelt Indian family tale turns out to become an absolute mockery because you felt you weren't in a position of power to express yourself while you saw it in front of your own naked eye going haywire. You quickly realize that the art of storytelling has been taken over by graphs, estimates, and corporatized structures that believe they can dictate creativity and align it with objective projections. A reality clearly stating that this large gap between your story and the structure that you want to assimilate in just don't match. Hence, the same people who come to this city as dreamers just become realists.